Welcome to True Crime Pulse, the podcast where we bring you crime stories from all over the world. On the evening of November 29th, 2009, an unsettling call was made to the sheriff's office. A neighbor had spotted an abandoned car and a man acting suspiciously, carrying something down the road before speeding away. When deputies arrived at the farmhouse, they were unprepared for the chaos that awaited them. The front door was ajar, and inside, blood stained the floors, with faint cries for help echoing from upstairs. Every step they took revealed a grim scene. What had led to this horrifying moment? What could have caused such violence in a family home? The answer lay in a story filled with control, anger, and the breaking point that would change everything. Stay with us as we uncover the tragic events of that night and the years that led to it. James Kahler seemed to have it all. With a six-figure salary, a stable career, and a seemingly perfect family, he appeared to be living the American dream. His wife, Karen, embraced her role as a devoted stay-at-home mom, caring for their three children, Emily, Lauren, and Sean. To the outside world, the Kahler family was the epitome of success, happy, thriving, and harmonious. However, beneath this polished surface, sacrifices and unspoken struggles shaped their reality. Karen, once pursuing an engineering degree, had put her dreams on hold after meeting James. Their whirlwind romance led to a life-altering decision. In December 1985, they married, and Karen left college to support James as his career took off. Together they moved to Colorado, where James secured a promising job, and Karen embraced her role as the supportive wife, ready to build a future. Their first milestone came on April 8, 1991, with the birth of their daughter, Emily. As James's career flourished, Karen fully immersed herself in motherhood. But her mother, Pat, began to worry. She noticed that Karen often placed James's needs before hers, even in the demanding early years of parenthood. Pat feared Karen was losing herself in their shared dream. By 1992, a job opportunity for James moved the family to Greenville, Texas, where in May 1993, their second daughter, Lauren, was born. Both girls thrived in their own ways. Emily excelled academically and musically, and Lauren shone in sports and music. But as time passed, the cracks in their seemingly perfect life began to show. One significant tension arose over expanding the family. Karen was content with two children, but James insisted on having a third. After much discussion, they reached a compromise. Karen agreed to have one more child, provided James would undergo a vasectomy afterward. In March 1999, Sean was born, fulfilling their agreement. True to his word, James had the procedure, signaling the end of their growing family. As James's career soared, the family moved once again, this time to a community near Dallas, where Karen quickly became involved in local activities. She became president of a mom's group, made friends, and ensured her children stayed engaged and active. On the outside, their life seemed idyllic, but James's unrelenting need for perfection began to take its toll. He set impossible standards for everyone, especially his children. Lauren often found herself criticized for not achieving straight A's like Emily. James's demands for control extended beyond his family and into his professional life, where he was known for his arrogance and disregard for women in leadership roles. His obsession with appearances and dominance pushed people away. Even at home, his need for control was evident. Despite earning $180,000 a year, James tightly controlled the family finances. Karen received a strict weekly allowance and was expected to keep detailed receipts of her shopping trips. His frugality was notorious. He borrowed tools instead of buying them and often relied on co-workers to cover his entertainment expenses at strip clubs. James also maintained an iron grip on their personal routine. Every evening at 8:30 p.m., Karen was expected to be in bed. Any deviation from this schedule was met with anger or worse. Friends often noticed how Karen would whisper during late-night phone calls, apologizing and rushing to end conversations to avoid upsetting James. Even when she was sick, her duties were not excused. Any hint of defiance was met with escalating rage, sometimes leading to physical violence. For Karen, compliance often felt like her only path to safety, though it hadn't always been this way. In the early days of their relationship, James's controlling tendencies were subtle, often masked as concern or practicality. Over the years, however, his need for dominance became more oppressive, suffocating her sense of independence. At one point, James introduced the idea of bringing another woman into their relationship, claiming it would spice things up. Karen was deeply unsettled by the suggestion, but felt too intimidated to outright refuse. The proposal lingered in her mind, a glaring reminder of how little say she had in their marriage. Desperate for an outlet and a sense of self, Karen secretly joined a gym. Fitness had always been a passion of hers, a personal escape from the stress of everyday life. But James refused to pay for a membership, dismissing it as frivolous. Undeterred, Karen found ways to scrape together the money, baking cakes for neighbors and taking odd jobs until by January 2006, she had saved enough to join Powerhouse Gym. The gym quickly became her sanctuary, a place where she could rediscover herself beyond her roles as wife and mother. Her dedication paid off, and within months, Karen earned a part-time position as a personal trainer. Surprisingly, James allowed her to take the job, but with a caveat. She had to return home before the children got back from school, ensuring her new pursuits didn't interfere with his expectations. At the gym, Karen found more than just an escape. She found a community. Among the trainers and clients, she began to share pieces of her troubled home life. She spoke of the constant arguments, James's volatile temper, and the bruises she tried so hard to conceal. Her unhappiness became an open secret, one that eventually drew the attention of Sonny, a fellow trainer. Sonny was everything James was not: calm, empathetic, and supportive. She became Karen's confidant, someone who listened without judgment. Over time, their bond deepened, and what began as a friendship evolved into a romantic relationship. The origins of Karen and Sonny's relationship were the subject of much speculation. Some believed James's earlier suggestion of involving a third party had unintentionally paved the way, while others thought their connection developed organically, hidden from James. Regardless, the relationship eventually came to light, and James, surprisingly, seemed to embrace it. He sent Sonny flirtatious messages, bought gifts for both women, and even encouraged their weekend getaways. To outsiders, it appeared as though James was attempting to modernize their marriage. Yet behind closed doors, he framed Karen as the instigator, accusing her of tearing their family apart while denying his role in fostering the arrangement. In 2008, James took a job in Columbia, Missouri, an opportunity that offered a higher salary, but also the perfect means to reassert control. He demanded that Karen leave behind her life in Weatherford, along with her burgeoning career and her relationship with Sonny. Heartbroken, Karen complied, uprooting her children and saying goodbye to the community she had worked so hard to build. But unbeknownst to James, Karen and Sonny vowed to maintain their relationship long distance, a promise that kept Karen tethered to a world outside of James's control. Once settled in Missouri, James believed their marriage had been restored. He even allowed Karen to pursue a degree in health sciences at the University of Missouri, along with continuing her work as a fitness instructor. But Karen, having experienced a taste of freedom, was no longer content to live entirely under James's thumb. She longed for the independence she had begun to build, and James's paranoia only deepened as he sensed her growing distance. He began to monitor her every move, emails, phone calls, and even her physical whereabouts. Their marriage, already strained, began to crumble under the weight of suspicion and mistrust. The breaking point came on New Year's Eve 2008 at a party back in Weatherford. Neither James nor Karen expected Sunny to be there, but her presence changed everything. Karen's joy at seeing Sunny was palpable. They laughed, hugged, and shared drinks, their connection unmistakable to anyone watching. To James, it was a public betrayal, an unforgivable affront to his authority. His rage boiled over, and in a moment of explosive anger, he confronted Karen in front of the party guests, shouting accusations of infidelity. The scene laid bare the fractures in their marriage, a dramatic unraveling of the carefully curated image James had fought so hard to maintain. Karen, on her part, thought this was her moment, and she was going to use it to the fullest. But she refused to back down. In a defiant act that would send shockwaves through the gathering, she kissed Sunny in full view of the guests. The room fell silent, and the air grew tense as all eyes turned toward them. The host, visibly uncomfortable with the brewing drama, intervened and asked them to leave, hoping to diffuse the escalating tension. However, the argument spilled out onto the front lawn, where emotions ran even higher. James, enraged and humiliated, allowed his anger to turn physical. In a fit of fury, he shoved Karen, sending her tumbling to the ground where she struck her head. The guests looked on in stunned disbelief, unsure how to react. By the next morning, the fallout was undeniable. Karen, nursing both her physical injuries and emotional turmoil, began to reflect on the chaos of the previous night. She questioned her choices, wondering if challenging James so openly had been worth the turmoil it brought. Seeking clarity, she told Sunny they needed to take a step back from their relationship to avoid further conflict. Sunny, however, adamantly disagreed. She pointed out that the root of the problem wasn't their relationship, but James's increasingly abusive and controlling behavior. Concerned for Karen's safety, Sunny urged her to make a change, to take the steps necessary to protect herself and her children. In January 2009, Karen made the difficult decision to file for divorce, marking the beginning of her fight to reclaim her independence. For the sake of her children, she chose to remain in the family home, but moved into a separate bedroom, creating a physical and emotional distance from James. Despite her efforts to establish boundaries, James refused to accept the separation. His obsessive behavior escalated to disturbing levels. He began monitoring Karen's emails, tracking her movements, and even intercepting greeting cards and letters from Sunny. Every time Karen tried to make plans with Sunny, James would find a way to interfere, driven by jealousy and a desperate need for control. At work, James's colleagues began noticing his increasingly erratic behavior. Once regarded as a composed and professional figure, James now carried a family photo album everywhere he went. He would show it to anyone who would listen, lamenting, "Why doesn't Karen want this perfect family?" His obsessive behavior made those around him uncomfortable, but James was too consumed by his fixation to notice. By March 2009, the tension reached a breaking point. After a city council meeting where James gave an impassioned speech, he and Karen became embroiled in yet another argument. This time, James's anger erupted into violence. He cornered Karen in their kitchen, pinning her against a cabinet, and assaulted her. Frightened and desperate, Karen called the police. James was arrested for third-degree domestic assault. In her police statement, Karen detailed years of escalating violence and control. She painted a vivid picture of a man whose temper and obsession had made life unbearable. James, however, dismissed the incident as a misunderstanding, claiming he had only been trying to hug her. The bruises on Karen's body told a different story, one that the authorities could not ignore. Shortly after the incident, Karen took decisive action. She moved out of the family home, taking her children with her, and withdrew $50,000 from their joint bank account to secure a rental home on the other side of Columbia. This bold move signaled her determination to break free from James's grip and rebuild her life. For James, the arrest was a catastrophic blow. As a public figure, news of his domestic violence charge made headlines, tarnishing his carefully cultivated reputation. His colleagues, who had already grown wary of his erratic behavior, began to distance themselves. Ultimately, James was forced to resign from his position, though the official reason given was family issues. In truth, his dismissal was inevitable. With his career in ruins and his family gone, James retreated to his parents' farm in Kansas. He hoped that hard work and isolation might bring clarity, but the seclusion only deepened his obsession. He fixated on Karen, replaying their life together in his mind and refusing to accept responsibility for the collapse of their marriage. To him, he had been the perfect provider and husband. He couldn't understand why Karen had left him and instead blamed her for destroying their family. James's obsession took a darker turn. He began stalking Karen, hacking into her emails, reading private messages, and intercepting cards from Sonny. Despite having once encouraged Karen's relationship with Sonny when it suited his own purposes, he now hurled homophobic slurs at both women, his anger and jealousy fueling his irrational behavior. His obsession further strained his relationships with his children. His eldest daughter, Emily, defied him by choosing a college he disapproved of, which James interpreted as a personal betrayal. When another daughter publicly came out as bisexual, James lashed out, accusing Karen of corrupting their children. Desperate to regain control, James poured his energy into building a case against Karen. He compiled over 3,500 pages of evidence for his divorce attorney, including screenshots of her private messages, notes on her visits to Sonny, and baseless claims of inappropriate behavior in front of the children. Despite his efforts, the accusations were never substantiated, further isolating James and leaving him more unhinged than ever. Amid this chaos, James seemed to maintain one stable relationship, his bond with his son, Sean. Unlike his estranged relationships with Karen and his daughters, James made an effort to stay connected with Sean. They spent time hunting and fishing together, and James clung to this relationship as the last thread of his crumbling family life. For James, Sean represented the last fragile thread connecting him to his shattered family, a glimmer of hope in an otherwise bleak reality. By Thanksgiving 2009, tensions within the family had reached their peak. Karen, determined to preserve some semblance of normalcy for her children, planned a visit to her grandmother Dorothy's farmhouse in Burlingame, Kansas. At 89, Dorothy lived in a quiet town of fewer than 1,000 residents, and Karen hoped the holiday reunion, joined by her children and Sonny, would provide a peaceful respite. On the day after Thanksgiving, Karen went to pick up Sean from James's house so he could join the family gathering. But what began as an effort to foster unity would end in unimaginable tragedy. On the evening of November 29, 2009, a Burlingame resident noticed a suspicious vehicle speeding through the area. The neighbor observed a man park, exit the truck, and walk down the road carrying a large, indistinct object. Moments later, he returned, placed the object in the truck's back seat, and drove off at high speed. Concerned, the neighbor contacted the sheriff's office, suspecting a robbery. What deputies uncovered was far darker. When they arrived at Dorothy's farmhouse to investigate, they were met with a scene of devastation. Dorothy was found in the kitchen, critically injured and bleeding heavily from multiple gunshot wounds. Though barely alive, she fought to hold on. Karen lay dead in the dining room, shot twice. Nearby, 18-year-old Emily was found behind the couch in the lounge, also shot twice. The second bullet had paralyzed her instantly, and she succumbed at the scene. Upstairs, a faint, labored voice alerted deputies to another victim. 16-year-old Lauren was gravely wounded, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. As paramedics rushed to stabilize her, Lauren whispered the name of the perpetrator. "James, my dad." Despite their efforts, her injuries were too severe and she succumbed shortly after. Dorothy also passed away, leaving Sean as the sole survivor of the massacre. Later, Sean recounted the horror of that night. He and Karen had been sitting together, cleaning old coins, when James stormed through the back door wielding a rifle. Without hesitation, he opened fire, killing Karen first. As Sean scrambled to call for help, the house filled with the echoes of gunshots. Fearing for his life, Sean fled through the chaos and sought refuge at a neighbor's house. Authorities acted swiftly, issuing a search warrant for James. His car was soon discovered abandoned in a remote area, its contents revealing unsettling details: ammunition, unopened bottles of anxiety medication, and a backpack filled with essentials like soap, canned food, and toilet paper. The scene suggested careful preparation, but James himself was missing. Hours later, officers found him wandering along a desolate road, disheveled and appearing lost. When approached, James offered no resistance. Instead, he muttered, "I'm the guy you're looking for," and surrendered calmly. In the aftermath, James's defense argued that his deteriorating mental health, including depression and personality disorders, had driven him to a breaking point. They claimed he had snapped and was no longer in control of his actions. However, the prosecution painted a starkly different picture, presenting a narrative of premeditated and calculated violence. Key evidence included testimony from James's psychiatrist, who confirmed that while James did suffer from mental health challenges, he retained the capacity for planning. The fact that he spared Sean's life underscored the intentional nature of his crimes. By 2011, the trial was underway, exposing the chilling depths of James's unraveling and the devastating consequences of his obsession and rage. At 12 years old, Sean displayed remarkable bravery as he took the witness stand to recount the night's terrifying events. With painful clarity, he detailed how his father stormed into their home and opened fire, killing his mother and sisters. His testimony vividly illustrated the brutal and premeditated nature of the violence, leaving no question about James's intent. Sunny also took the stand, offering insight into Karen's tumultuous relationship with James. She described how James's demeanor had transformed from detached to menacing after Karen decided to leave him. While Sunny's testimony was based on her memories and Karen's accounts, it provided crucial context for understanding the toxic dynamics that led to the tragedy. After just 2 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a unanimous decision. James was guilty of capital murder, and his defense of insanity was rejected. He was sentenced to death, showing no emotion as the sentence was read. When the victim impact statements were read, James even requested to leave the courtroom but was denied. The most poignant moment of the trial came when Sean gave his victim impact statement. Despite the unimaginable pain he had endured, he said, "I do not want my dad to receive the death penalty because it would be hard on my grandparents. I don't want my whole family gone." Even after everything James had done, Sean still struggled with the idea of losing his father. James, however, showed no remorse. Following the sentencing, James began writing letters, not to express regret, but to justify his actions. He claimed he had freed Sean from what he called a toxic environment, showing a disturbing lack of accountability and a distorted view of his crimes. James's legal team quickly filed an appeal, arguing that the jury had been biased and that his mental health hadn't been fully considered. However, the Kansas Supreme Court upheld his conviction, stating that his mental health had been evaluated during sentencing and did not excuse his actions. The appeal was denied, and James remained on death row, a grim reminder of the irreversible consequences of his choices. For Sean, the aftermath of the tragedy became a story of resilience. Despite the immense pain and trauma he faced, he graduated high school and built a new life in Kansas. His journey is a testament to human strength and the ability to overcome even the darkest circumstances. Though James's crimes left a permanent scar, Sean's perseverance is a powerful reminder of the potential for healing and growth. Thank you for listening to True Crime Pulse. Share your thoughts on the story, like and subscribe to the channel. Until next episode when we bring you more crime stories, stay vigilant.